Okay, hello ladies. Basically what we're going to do is I'm going to ask some questions that I've been asking from a lot of my friends who are white, who we sort of want to look at questions that we would ask black people but we're too scared to, or it's quite an uncomfortable subject to ask. So we're just going to go ahead and ask those questions and these two lovely ladies are going to answer them. Are we ready?
Yay, let's go with the awkward questions.
Okay, so the first one, do people of colour feel patronised by white people being very vocal during times like this, so the Black Lives Movement, or is there anything that you wish white allies knew would be more aware of, or would you want us to be more aware of something?
Lisa?
The questions are so hard, aren't they, like, when you think about them? No, I don't think it's patronising at all. I think it's really nice when people speak up and speak their mind, and that's what everyone really wants, is to feel that they're supported during this. And at the end of the day, it's a system based on white privilege, and we need white allies to really help dismantle that system. So no, I don't think it's patronising. I hope that at the same time those who aren't speaking up are doing some research and looking at ways that they can educate themselves and help the movement as well. But yeah, no, I wouldn't say it's patronising. What would you say, Raisha?
I literally completely agree. I don't think it's patronising at all. I encourage my sort of white friends and family to get involved, and if they don't want to speak out because they don't feel comfortable to, then at least listen and learn. But those that do, those that have read books or feel comfortable to have those conversations, absolutely do. And I massively appreciate all the support. And I've had friends messaging me, asking me if I'm okay, asking me if I need anything, and I can't say how much I appreciate that support and that help, and friends sort of having my back and feeling like people have my back in something that sometimes I felt completely alone in. So I am literally so appreciative of all the allies.
I guess we do need to be one unit really to actually make this movement move forward, because without white people using their privilege, I guess the voices may not be heard, because I mean that's been the problem for the last 400 years, is that these voices have not been elevated. So white allies out there, keep going. How do we as white allies, how do we do more for the cause? I mean, you've mentioned things like research, read. What else can we do?
Talk to people, talk to each other. The amount of times I've tried to have a discussion about race with a person of a different race, and you see that sort of glazed over, I'm not listening anymore look. Just talk about it. The more we share experiences, the more we make it mainstream to have a discussion about race, the better it can be. It can't do any harm to talk. It's not going to hurt anybody to just use your voice.
I agree. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable, as we keep saying. Definitely. Exactly. Do you have anything on that one? Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I've got most of my friends who are white, they're scared to say the wrong thing, and I understand. I completely get it. Maybe it's a situation that really you've never really thought of before, or maybe this is all so new to you and you don't want to offend people, and I get it, 100% get it. But me personally, I want to have those conversations. I want you to understand where I'm coming from. Look, everyone has had different experiences in life. We're going to see the world completely different. You've been, as white people, whether we like it or not, have been, me as well, as a person of colour, been brought up on a system that is based on white privilege. So I feel like you will see the world differently because you are not subject or exposed to the racism either. So it's literally, as much as you don't want to have those conversations, it's an absolute must. And please don't be scared to offend. If you're on the path of anti-racism, you cannot offend. It's just literally questioning your own reality. So you have to be prepared to look at your own experiences and question, is that the reality for everyone? And I think that's just so basically I agree.
I know for me, like having the conversations, especially with you two, like you two telling me your experiences, that was really eye-opening for me, and it's not something that I've ever asked before or necessarily had these uncomfortable conversations, but the more we talk about it, the more comfortable I am with asking these questions. So yeah, I agree. Great. So in terms of everything that's going on at the moment with this Black Lives movement, there is a lot of like controversial opinions online about the protests, especially with COVID-19 going on. So how do you feel about the protests happening during lockdown? Do you worry that people are putting other people at risk? Or, I mean, it's going to change a little bit with the protests that have been going on in London today as well, of course.
So many people ask me this question. I don't want to offend anyone, but I'm just going to speak my mind. I personally am of the belief that when you're protesting for human rights, it's for a reason. It's not just your own generation, it's for future generations. The suffragettes were fighting for women to vote during the worst flu ever, worse than this, that killed way more people. And I'm not condoning it, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we should all be out here and in the streets. I mean, I'd love to be in a world where we wouldn't have to protest for things like this. I personally haven't protested for my own circumstances. I live with an elderly man, and I don't want to put him at risk, but I will never ever judge anyone for going into, you know, a protest and fighting for what really should not be a thing in 2020. And let's be honest, how long is this pandemic going to go on for? We haven't got, like, are we supposed to wait in a year or two before we suddenly take to the streets and stand up for what we would believe in? So yeah, I'm never, as much as I haven't done it, I would never put someone else down for doing it. It's for an amazing cause, and yeah, that would be my point. What about you, Raisha?
For me, I think everything that is going, there's so many things that I've seen online saying racism is also a virus. For some people, it's more important. Don't think for a second that protesters are going out and not thinking about COVID-19. They realise, but it's so important to say enough is enough, that they're willing to have that risk of themselves. Anyone with any sense of worth will absolutely isolate afterwards. I will go to a protest this weekend and I will isolate for 2 weeks afterwards. I have my own health conditions that are making it a worry, but for me, it's worth it. And I know that I won't put any other person at risk because I will stay at home then and not have contact with anybody else. I think if people are smart, if you're using your protective gear, if you're wearing masks, if you're wearing gloves, if you're using hand sanitizer, if you're being smart about it, then absolutely. At the end of the day, George Floyd didn't choose to die during this pandemic. We didn't choose to have this now. But in all honesty, it's already too late. It shouldn't be happening in 2020. It should have happened years ago. And I don't want people, young children growing up now, to grow up in the world that I grew up in with the experiences that I have. So if we have to do it and risk our lives, then that's what I'll do.
And just to add to that, I feel like a lot of people aren't realising that people of colour are actually more at risk of dying from coronavirus. So, you know, they're putting themselves genuinely at risk, and because of the inequalities that still exist in the UK between white people and BAME people. So I think you have to really consider how you would feel if someone was on the, someone you loved and truly loved was murdered simply for the colour of their skin, and just put yourself in that person's position and think how would you react? I mean, this isn't just George Floyd, you know, this is a catalyst for a movement of feeling for hundreds of years. I mean, protests for like centuries, and it should not be happening. And I do not want my children to go through this. I don't want their children to go through this. It's just like enough is enough. So yeah, I just thought I'd add that in.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there.
I think, I mean, there is a lot of controversy around it, but I do agree, like, I can't imagine the feeling to go out in a pandemic and have to fight for my rights. Like, we'll never understand that. And I know you say to, like, put ourselves into that position and think, like, what, we can't, we will never understand it, but we have to try and learn about it, and, I don't know, even just empathise with it as much as we possibly can. Of course, there's all of the controversy as well around the statues being pulled down. What do we think about that? Is there anything that you want to say?
For me, when Edward Colston came down, I had no idea who we were. I didn't. But then I don't live in Bristol. If I did, when the first thing I felt about once I learned about it was, I was so glad it was taken down. I cannot imagine sharing my home with a slave trader being put on a pedestal. It would break my heart. So I was so glad for the people of colour that they didn't have to live with that anymore, for the people of colour that lived in Bristol. But I'm also glad that it's been dredged out of the river and is going to end up in a museum, because no one can learn anything about him if he's at the bottom of the river. And I genuinely think this country needs to learn about all its history completely, not just that he was a philanthropist who spent loads of money on the city of Bristol, but that he got that money from the slave trade. And I feel like it goes for, I think every single statue has its own personal argument. When it comes to sort of Churchill, for example, let's be clear, nobody actually took Churchill down. Nobody tried to rip him off his pedestal. Nobody said he wasn't a British hero. All that was put there is Churchill is a racist, and that's true. Whether you like it or not, whether you can face it or not, whether you can handle it, it's a fact. He was a racist. He was a white supremacist. And for me, that sort of spray painted is a racist on Churchill's pedestal, it's just somebody sharing the truth that wasn't actually commonly known. And I was more than happy for it to be there, and I would like that to be put on a proper plaque on Churchill, because at the end of the day, we need the whole truth, not the selective, look at us, we're brilliant, we're all good, all hero, all shining armour. There is a lot of dirtiness in the history of this country, and it all needs to be shared.
Whitewashing of history.
Yeah, don't get me started on that statue of the black guy who somebody bleached to make him white, and we know it in an actor. It's disgusting, honestly. It's disgusting.
It's part of the problem, isn't it? It's just another catalyst to what is going on. So do you have anything to add on that with the statues, Alicia?
I mean, look, yeah, take it. While I'm not a fan of vandalism, I'm going to preach for the other side, the other argument here. Vandalism, no, I'm not okay with. But that being said, I can't help but cheer on the inside. I had a party for one when that happened, because honestly, I'm sick of people saying slavery is gone. Get over slavery. How can you get over slavery when you've got it everywhere around you? As if it's like something fantastic to be, praised. Like, I don't understand. We've got names of streets, names of buildings, statues everywhere. I agree, it should be in a museum. We need to have more education and understanding about our history and what actually happened way back when in this country. But where are the statues of all the people of colour who helped this country? I just feel like Churchill didn't do everything by himself. He had help, and they included people of colour. So yeah, I also think, during the whole protesting, it's been great, because now other countries around the world are following suit. We've seen, statues coming down in other countries, other cities, and, we can petition all we want. I'm pretty sure a petition was actually put forward to have that statue removed, and how slow was that? I mean,
it didn't happen.
If you have to take it down yourself, you'll take it down yourself. So, I mean, yeah, is it breaking the law? I don't know, but do I rate it? Probably, yeah.
And just to add to that, there was a petition just to add that Edward Colston was a slave trader. Literally just to have a plaque under his plinth, on his little sort of pedestal, saying actually he was a slave trader, and even that was refused. What else were we supposed to do?
Other than just
write it ourselves or tear him down.
But I mean, even, people, everyone around the world, like leaders, politicians, are agreeing with it. So
yeah, this is true.
It's about time it came down, is what I read. I don't know, but yeah.
I'd probably agree. I think it's a statue at the end of the day. Like, taking a statue down is not going to erase history, is it?
I'd rather take the statue down than a human down for being black. So just to put that into perspective too.
A piece of rock or metal means nothing compared to a person's life at the end of the day.
Exactly. A whole race's life is what we're talking about here, rather than a big stump of rock that people probably didn't even know any of its origins. They're just kicking off because the media has highlighted it. So that brings me into my next question. What do you think of the media and their portrayal of the Black Lives Matter protest, the movement. You know, we've seen the brutality of Black people in these protests. We've seen the horse treatment, and yet today there's been the EDL movement, and you know, that's coming from videos of people there. I don't think there's been that much media coverage on it. So what's your take on that?
Alicia?
Oh, you're coming to me first. I was quiet for a reason. I don't like the media, if I'm honest. I think when I'm, you know, listening to Akala and everything he's saying, I completely relate to what he says when it might be not to go on a tangent, but it's still part of the same question. It's just when it comes to, you know, criminal acts, the race is only ever really mentioned when it's someone who isn't white. So then people will then feel, you know, if that filters down into people's minds subconsciously, you then start relating all these acts of people, you know, you blame it on their race, and it's not, you know, you don't see the same for someone who's white. And I feel like with the media has a massive power. Like, they have so much power, they can control people and how they think. And if you aren't in a position to educate yourself, I mean, I think we all are, we've all got access, I would presume, to books and internet now, but say for example you are surrounded with other ignorant people, and you're insulated in one place, you've never met someone who doesn't, you know, think or look like you. The only real way, you know, the media has the power to really influence your thought process on that, and I feel like they have a big part to blame in everything. I did see before some coverage on the EDL protest day. I was looking for it because I was thinking, I don't think it's as much coverage, but I don't know if it's just because they've not had enough time. But I haven't seen anywhere near as many people piping up about it as they were about the Black Lives Matter movement. And for me, it frustrates me, because why is it okay to criticize people for wanting human rights for something that shouldn't happen in 2020, but then not criticize people for, to be honest, I don't know why they're even protesting. What are they protesting? Do they even know why they're fighting? They're trying to protect statues, but they're weeing all over him. Like, I don't even know. It just makes no sense. I don't get it. But yeah.
In front of Churchill, a Nazi sign in front of Churchill. It's just completely, yeah.
Yeah. For me, the media, I am avoiding, I'm not going to lie, I'm avoiding the media. I will dedicate an hour or two, not even that, an hour to watching what's going on the news, just so I can get an appreciation for what stories are actually going out there, but only because I want to understand how other people are viewing this who will be watching the news, not because I believe a single word that is said. I just want to put that out there. And I actually, and Lord forgive me, I actually think the only person in the media telling the truth right now is Piers Morgan, which is terrifying, guys. Everybody, it is terrifying to actually relate that. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth.
No, honestly, that man.
Guy.
I think the media definitely has, like, you know, it creates an opinion for a lot of people who don't want to do the research and who don't want to educate themselves, that the media gives them their opinion, and that's the easiest thing for them to run with, is that's how it is. Now, I personally think that the media has created a very black versus white.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's all about. That's what these protests are about. They're trying to say that this is all black people versus white people. What is your stance on that?
For me, for this whole black versus white is ridiculous, especially here in the UK. The population of black people in the UK, nobody would hear a thing if it was only black people speaking out. For every video, every picture, everything I've seen of protests, of people speaking up, it's been predominantly white people. So how is that black versus white? For me, it has always been racist versus anti-racist, and not a versus, more of a racist not really listening to the anti-racist.
Yeah.
There is no black versus white. It literally doesn't exist. And the next time I hear that phrase, I think I might explode because I hate it. There is no black versus white. End of story.
okay either.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we're both mixed race. We're both black and white, so it's not a case of I hate all my white family, hate all my white friends, and all, you know, my past white boyfriends I've had, like all my white colleagues. It's just it's stupid. It's not a thing. It's not about white versus black. It literally is race, as you said, racists and anti-racist. Every race, in my opinion, can be racist to each other. It's got nothing to do with white and black. It's literally a system that privileges white people or the fairer skinned, and that's global. When I travel, the amount of belief system it's crazy. I've met, you know, people from China, people from Africa, and I'm not joking. The comments you have will always favor, at least the ones I have, in my conversations I've had, they always seem to favor white people and the fairer skin and put black people on the bottom of the, like, way bottom of the list. Like, that's just a common theme that I've noticed. So yeah, it's not white versus black, it's just the system of that supports the privilege of being white, if that makes sense.
I'd just like to add to that as well is trying to oppose or opposing racism isn't just a black thing. I have so many friends of other races that face racism. And I mean, I have friends from Poland who are, for all intents and purposes, white people that face racism. And this is as much, it's their problem and as much as a problem that they are facing as me with my dark skin or other people with other skin types. This is not a black v white, and I really think, I really hope that everybody of every race sees this fight, sees this movement as a positive for them and a fight for them. At least that's how I see it. When I talk about races and racism, I don't just mean black, I mean people of Asian descent, people of Eastern European descent, people from anybody. Nobody should have to feel like they are lesser because they are from somewhere else. It's ridiculous. So I just wanted to put that in there as well.
Yeah, I agree.
The whole notion of saying that the movements are segregating us is just baffling. Like how these movements are there because they have to be there. They're not there in order for us to suddenly like flip the scale. It's not about black supremacy over white supremacy, is it? That's not what we're talking about here. And I think that's for some reason what a lot of people have formed the opinion of, whether that's the media, whether that's lack of education, I don't know. But unfortunately,
you know, what I think it could be is based on, I don't know if it was something that you shared or we shared on our platform, but about how when white people hear the term white privilege, you know, I have spoken to someone the other day and he was saying how he knows plenty of black people who are more privileged than him, so he doesn't understand. He thinks it creates racism because it's simply not the case for him. I think people, you know, I don't know if you remember the post, it was kind of like, you know, people are never used to really hearing them call like themselves white. It's kind of like the standard, so they don't hear that, they hear the privilege and go, well, hang on, I know black people who are smart, like who have gone to university and have got, you know, whereas I can't get a place at university, or they've got, you know, yachts and I don't have a yacht, or they have houses and I don't have a house. And I think it's more being open-minded to listening to what actually is the problem, rather than just going, well, that doesn't, I don't think I'm making any sense. Where you just kind of shut off and you think, well, that doesn't affect me, it's not real because I'm not privileged in life. It's not about you as an individual, it's everything. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so it's not the privilege of like what you have, it's the privilege that you get
like
just being white.
Lord says in her book, she says white privilege is not having more than black people, it's the absence of the hardships that black people have. And I think that's important to remember.
Yeah.
And to not take it personally.
What was that, sorry, Alicia?
What are you just said?
Okay, I'd be quite interested then, just sort of still stemming on from the media, but what is your take on all of these shows being removed? So obviously we've had Little Britain taken away for blackface. We've had, I don't know, an episode of Fawlty Towers has been removed. There's all sorts of shows that are now being taken down because they do hold blackface. And I've seen quite a lot of, two-sided opinions on this. A lot of black people saying they don't actually care that these shows are being taken down. It doesn't really matter. Like, that's happened. White people kicking off because they think that it's black people asking for them to be taken down. What do you think is the root cause there? What do you think is happening?
Do you want to go first?
I don't care. I think about Little Britain. I remember Little Britain, and it was out when I was a kid, and I remember certain parts, and I remember feeling upset about the way that. Do you know what upset me most? And it's actually more of a reflection on white people than it is black people. It was the old lady vomiting every time she saw a black man. But it was more a joke about her racism than about him. But I found it really upsetting that somebody might throw up as soon as they see my face. But that was as a kid. Now, as an adult, I don't care. Like, it's in the past where it belongs. If people want to watch that, fair enough. I think parents need to be careful of what they show their kids, because it will set a precedent of how they think they are viewed to everybody.
Yeah.
But I really, really don't care. And when it comes to Fawlty Towers, it's nothing to do with being black. It's about racist comments made towards Germans. I'm just putting that out there. No black person asked for Fawlty Towers to be removed.
Oh.
It's a comment about don't talk about the war when they have German guests in the hotel in Fawlty Towers.
Nothing.
It's nothing to do with the Black Lives Matter movement whatsoever, actually.
I mean, I've personally never ever actually watched any of the, I've never watched Little Britain. I think that scene that you've just talked about, the vomiting scene, I mean, A, I hate vomit anyway, but B, I remember as a child being like, that does not sound normal, so I've never watched it. And, like you say, if people want to watch it, maybe just watch it with a anti-racist mind now, rather than watching it how we may have viewed it a few years ago.
I don't think there's anything wrong with these shows taking them down. I think that's their personal choice. If they want to acknowledge that maybe they could be seen as offensive, I personally am not bothered. I've never seen any of them. I don't think I would be bothered. I have seen one show, I've forgotten what it's called. My dad showed me it, and I was like, that is actually so offensive when I watched it. I've forgotten what it was called now.
Wasn't that the black and white minstrel show?
Yeah, I watched it and I was like, this is disgusting. Like, I don't know why. I just thought, this is so disgusting. Like, why can't you have, if you want to dress up and paint yourself black, just get black people on the show. Like, why do you need to? For me, it's more a case of if you're mocking black people without really, I mean, I, at that point, probably wouldn't have seen that many black people on the show anyway. So you don't want black people on the show, but you'll paint yourself up as a black person and mock, or maybe, do some kind of act out stereotypes. I think that's a thing, but for the most part, I actually don't care. I think Ant and Dec took one of their episodes down and said that it was of an era where it was more appropriate. Well, not appropriate, but it's just outdated now, and they've taken it down. But that's their choice, Not every person of color is asking for these shows to come down. And if you are offended that they're coming down, I'd probably try and just think why they are and why people have actually made that decision. People don't just make decisions for no reason. It's kind of, it might not offend you, but if it's offending someone that it's portraying to be someone, then you kind of got to be open-minded to that.
It's probably a lack of education on what blackface actually is, and I know that we're looking at sort of educating on that at some point. What would you say to these people that are kicking off about white chicks not being taken down? That to me is a lack of education on the subject a little bit, but what is your take on that?
I saw someone post this on Facebook. Again, I don't have an opinion. I don't watch any of these things. I don't watch White Chicks. I mean, were people who were offended by that offended before? I don't know. I don't really know. I've never seen it, so I don't know.
All I can say with that is, at the end of the day, blackface is a thing. obviously from the black and white minstrel show, which you watched with your dad, it's obviously disgusting. And it's been a racial argument for a long time around blackface. Whiteface isn't a thing. It's not, there's no history behind it. There's no malice behind it, whereas there was with blackface. So I understand if people feel offended by it, but it doesn't have the depth that blackface has.
I agree. Okay,
I'm just nodding.
Okay, so one thing that one of my friends has asked is, what was your opinion of Blackout Tuesday? Do you feel like it was solidarity with everybody posting a black photo onto their Instagram accounts, or was it just like a futile attempt at white people or other races sort of following a trend on their social accounts?
I loved it. I felt very proud. I felt very included, which is not something I felt a lot of in my life as a mixed race woman. I felt very strong. It was very empowering. It was very strengthening. That being said, for the people that put up their little black square and then have done nothing since, or have carried on with their quite racist ways, I see you, we see you, and we won't forget. Yes, exactly that.
They're still helping the movement though. Like, they still contributed to an outpouring of acknowledgement. I mean, it's got everyone talking, and I know I had tried to talk about some of these things for so many times, you know, years ago. I remember I did YouTube ages ago. Some of these exact topics I'm bringing up now are the exact same topics I was bringing up then. But when I was bringing it up then, I was told that's offensive. Like, you're like, just take, like, no, it's overreaction. And I think that's just about makeup at the time. I was just saying how I found it offensive that no makeup artist knew how to do my makeup, or like, I think that was literally all I was talking about, and people were offended by my comment, which really wasn't offensive in my opinion, because I literally only stated that I found it offensive that makeup artists couldn't do my like, why am I being left out? I don't really, and that's, yeah, so yeah. I just get like so like, oh, I know there are people who genuinely mean it, who've taken their time out. Not everyone posted, and you don't have to. People show their solidarity in many of the ways. I've had friends who didn't post a single thing and have come and engaged and had really lovely conversations with me and shown me, you know, books they're reading and starting topics. And I felt really, honestly, truly empowered by that movement. I've gone on to have the most eye-opening conversations, and honestly, it's been the catalyst for our platform. So I can't really be too negative about it. It's really a shame, the circumstances in which it started. I think it's disgraceful that it happens, but I'm happy that, you know, people who were once sleeping on this movement have been fully awakened by it. And I don't think, you know, statues are now being removed. There's a positive, and
yeah,
I feel like we're getting somewhere. I know it might sound a bit skeptical, but or too hopeful. I don't know. Fuel on this fire, isn't there? There's definitely something happening. Well, hopefully we can keep it going anyway. Yeah. That's all right. I mean, I think personally that movement, I mean, I know that there's a lot of controversial opinions, but I do think that movement has sort of thrown that fuel onto the fire, and it has sort of led a lot of people to realise that we now need to educate our future generations. I mean, you know, I can't stop saying about how much I want to educate Oscar. I want him to grow up, and I want him to be understanding and inclusive, and a lot of people are saying that. But how do we tackle the older generations, those who may have lived through a very, very different time where racism was so in your face, it was so blatant? How do we tackle that?
I think this is a really difficult question.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I am tackling it in the same way that I would tackle teaching older people how to use the internet. Keep it small, keep it simple, keep it very basic, and just leave it at that.
I don't think you can, personally. I think you can try. I'd like to think that, you know, my friends, because I know they've say that their family won't let them date people who are of certain religions and races, and but that they're just going along with it. Some people question, some people challenge it, and they've actually managed to change their grandparents' mindset, and they've been open-minded and met their partner who is, you know, black or and they get along great. And she said that that was literally just exposing her to someone that she loved, and they eventually got on like a house on fire. So I think there are instances where that happens, and there are other instances where you just can't do anything. Like, there's no point, you know. The whole point of us trying to talk about these things isn't to change a racist's mind. I think sometimes just so far gone, you're never getting it back. But not every old person's a racist though as well. So, you know, I have to say thank you and big up to the people who aren't, because did you see that old little man who walked for like hours to go and protest? He was like something, and I was like, love you. Yeah.
What would you say then to, you know what I'm like, I get really angry when I see these racist writing things, and you two, you've faced it for so long that you are both really good at just being like, you know what, this person's not even worth the time. What do you say to people who maybe are sort of new to this, or even black people who do get really frustrated with these people that are just outwardly racist on social media platforms? Or what's your advice to them, to step away? Or
I would say don't put yourself through the trauma of trying to argue with a brick wall, because it's going to do nothing but hurt you. They're not going to listen. If they've already decided that you're wrong, they're not going to listen to it. You could literally hit them with all the facts in the world, and it's going to land on deaf ears. And all that's going to do is make you more frustrated, make you more angry, make you feel that more. And that's traumatic. It's traumatic for anybody. Don't put yourself through it. Talk to people that want to listen. Find a safe space, like Let's Talk Racism, and talk to people that actually want to listen and actually care.
I agree.
Agree.
This might, oh, go on. Did you want anything, Alicia?
No, I agree.
This might be sort of a bit more of a touchy one, but how does being black in the UK affect your mental health, especially during a time like this?
I've struggled. I have struggled with anxiety like I haven't in years. Since I was at university, I haven't struggled with anxiety like this. I've burnt out. On the one hand, I really want to get involved. I want to talk to people. I want to engage with absolutely everyone. But at the same time, there's things that are taking my attention in it, and it's seeing the racism, the actual blatant racism that's happening is exhausting, and it's burning me out, and it's killing me sometimes. And I have, like I said before, I've had to limit my sort of media intake. I have limited, to the best of my ability, my social media intake, and I've also limited myself with conversations with people who I know aren't willing to listen. And I've gotten to a point where I don't hate those people, but I just can't talk to you right now because it's just painful for me. But I've struggled, and I genuinely think it's so important for any person of colour, anybody that is actively being anti-racist right now. Don't forget about yourself. This is going to be a movement that is years in the making. It's a revolution that is going to be years in the making. Don't burn yourself out in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. Take your time out so you can fight your fight again and again and again. Take your time to look after you.
How about you, Alicia?
Yeah, no, I felt every word of it. Last week was actually really hard for me. I know there are, you know, because I'm being mixed race, I know there are black people who, not my friends, but I know other mixed race people have had black people say to them, you can't fully ever understand, you're not black, you don't get the experience we get. And I get it, having lighter skin does give you that additional privilege, and I fully appreciate and I'm aware of that. But I have black family, I experience the racism myself, I get the racial profiling, you name it. So I do get it, and I when I see people hurt, I look at my black family, think of my black mum, and honestly, it's so painful. And it really hurt. Like last week I had to take time off work. I wasn't sleeping. I think I lost a whole load of weight. I just wasn't eating properly, wasn't drinking enough water. So yeah, it does really get to you. But Raish is right. You just kind of have to limit your social media and do what you can, pace yourself, because social media is not healthy. Like, it's great because it's like a way to keep in touch and keep up to date with the changes in the news and stuff, because but at the same time, go to places and focus that energy where it's going to make you feel better and where you feel safe and secure. And that's like, let's talk racism. It's exactly one of those places where you can go and talk about your experience. You can learn from other people, and you are literally talking to people who are willing to listen. It's a platform where you can just talk. We will listen. Whereas talking to God knows who on Facebook while they're posting all these idiot memes that honestly they haven't taken an ounce of second to really research. They've just shared it on and gone, oh, look at this. When no, don't waste your time. It's not worth it. So that's,
for me, it's literally why I wanted to get involved with creating Let's Talk Racism. It's for that safe space for proper discussion. Because I think I said to Sarah before we started, this is, I want to say something, but I can't handle feeling like I'm going to be screaming into the void. I can't handle it. This is literally why I wanted to get involved in this project.
Yeah, the way that you two both told me and expressed that you felt is part of the reason I wanted to do this as well, because you both were telling me about how you were struggling with it, and no one should struggle that much, especially not because of the colour of their skin. That's not your choice. You should be proud of the colour of your skin, like damn proud of it. So I think that is why we've created this. So yeah, lovely. I'm going to move away from the movement a little bit now, because I don't want us to get like with this whole thing. So I have got a couple of questions that a few people asked me. One of them is a little bit more lighthearted, but I'll go with it. So I do see quite a few different outlooks on this one. Be interested to know what you think about referring to people as black and people as white. So I've seen quite a lot of people saying that it's offensive to call people black people and white people, but I've then also seen people say, I think we've had this conversation, like actually we should feel comfortable saying black people, white people, because at the end of the day, that is one of our differences, and it's one difference that we should acknowledge and be proud of, that we do have that. What do you think?
Alicia?
No, I completely agree. I've been saying this for time. I get that people are anxious. Someone actually messaged me the other day and said, I just don't know whether I can say black. And they look at you when you say white as if to say you shouldn't say white. But why should you not be allowed to talk about other races, like, if it's relevant to the discussion? Like, this is what I find a problem. It's such a taboo topic. If we're going to talk about racism, we need to talk about race. If you're not comfortable to talk about race, then we've got a problem. It shouldn't be a situation where you're like, oh, I don't want to say white. But it's not to me, it's personally, I don't find it remotely offensive. I might correct someone and say I'm not fully black just because I'm not, and I'm both. And that for me as a mixed race person, it's been quite hard as well to really find my own identity and with the two together. But that said, I am so proud of being both, and I don't think anyone should really feel uncomfortable to say white and black. It's not offensive. Like, you've seen those people, someone else was telling me, there's a whole group of people in the street. This made me laugh. My friend was like, there's a group of people in the street, everyone was white apart from our one neighbor who's black, and I was trying to describe him in every way, but I wouldn't call him black. But I was like, oh, the one who just lives in the, that house, and her partner was like, I don't know who you mean. The one with the bike, the only black person on the street, just call him black. You're gonna save yourself time. Like, it's not offensive. I don't find it personally offensive. I think it's obviously if you're being derogatory, then it's offensive. It just depends how you use the word. But yeah, what about you, Raisha?
For me, I mean, I have had friends ask me, usually because I have corrected people. I don't like certain phrases, so I don't like half-caste. And growing up in Yorkshire, I get called half-caste all the time. I've also been called other words, but let's not go into them. I will correct somebody and say I'm mixed race, but when I'm talking about myself in general conversation, I'll usually say black. And that's just because I am a person of colour, but I don't like the word colour.
Yeah.
And there's a poem by an African man now. I wish I could reference it properly and remember his name and what the poem's called. But he talks about how he, as a black man, is born black. He's black when he's ill, he's black when he's in the sun, and he's black when he dies. But a white man is pink when he's born, and he's red in the sun, and he's yellow when he's ill, and he's grey when he dies. So who is actually coloured? So, and I read that when I was a kid. I was really young when I read that, so I've never really liked being called coloured or colour or anything like that. But it really comes down to personal preference, and I actually really think nobody's going to be offended if you just ask them.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, the politically correct terms, things like BAME, like BAME, Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic, things like POC, Person of Colour. Nobody can be offended by that because that's basically what we've been said are the correct terms. But if you've got a black friend and you don't really know how to describe, just ask them what they prefer. So it's really simple. Nobody's going to be offended. If you're coming with that question without malicious intent, nobody's going to take it maliciously. Just ask.
I think it's a little bit of a taboo, like it's what I wrote the other day. We don't refer to ourselves as white people because there isn't an obstacle of being white. We've never had to refer to ourselves as white people. I don't have to refer to any one of my friends as white person because, I mean, it is the majority.
It's a given, it's the default, yeah.
That's it. So I think we do need to get comfortable with these terms. And obviously there are terms that we definitely need to stay the hell away from. Come on to them maybe on another day, but I think at the end of the day, saying someone's black or white, it's probably one of the safer ways of saying it, really.
Yeah.
There is, but I want to add to that on the other side of things because it does annoy me. I've corrected plenty of people about this, is that obviously I'll be walking around down the street with someone and, out of nowhere, you just, oh, by the way, two Asians own that house, or like that black guy, he owns that, but they don't do it for white people. And my friend said that she was like, oh my god, I do that. I'll just randomly add the race. I don't find it offensive using the race, the actual race itself, but I find it a weird way of thinking that you're clearly demonstrating that white is the default because you feel the need to add the race to anyone else when it's not relevant. And I don't really get the relevance of certain times, but that's just me personally. I find that very odd. But generally speaking, the terms themselves, no, I don't find them.
It's just interesting to know, isn't it? Because it is a taboo. I don't think anyone's ever really discussed this kind of thing before, so it's good to know. And like you say, just ask people. It's a lot easier. Okay, this question is one that I know you two are going to go off on one for ages about. The fetish that is surrounded, particularly with women wanting to touch black people's hair, black women's hair,
right?
Black people in general.
Oh, I hate it. Literally.
Why do we do it?
And to an extent, I compared it to somebody the other day as like how women like to steal men's hats in a nightclub, because girls love doing this.
What?
Girls do that all the time, steal men's hats. I know this. I know this from my brother. He goes mental over it because he used to collect certain type of hat and he used to lose his mind.
That is hilarious. What it was?
Black people, black women especially, have a different type of relationship and connection with their hair. I have spent 25 and a half years of my life learning how to love my hair. I have not done that for somebody to stick their filthy fingers into it, especially when it takes 4 hours to wash it.
Wow.
Oh god, tell me about the time I need to wash mine. Been dreading it all week.
Well, I am really sensitive about this. And it's the same, if I have braids, like I have literally had somebody come up to me and start stroking the side of my head like this and start talking. And I'm like, what are you doing? But then you can't really kick off about it because then you're the aggressor. Just don't touch black people's hair. Just don't do it. Don't even ask to do it. Don't ask about it. Like, don't tell people that they should have their afro because it looks so good, it's so cool and funky, yeah, but nobody sees it as beautiful, nobody sees it as professional, nobody sees it as sophisticated. So don't tell me that I should wear my afro when it's people like you that see it as unprofessional and scruffy and disgusting.
I hate that.
I'm very sensitive about my hair.
I ruin my hair so much. I think it's such a shame that we have to straighten our hair, you know, chemically straightened. Because my mum was born and raised in Britain, she was very surrounded by Eurocentric ideals, and her and my aunt both pushed on me to have my hair chemically straightened because my hair was awful. It really wasn't awful. It was just and my hair, they just didn't know how to deal with my hair, and they were black. They just didn't know how to deal with my hair, and they look around, and even my little cousins now, they just want little, you know, straight hair, and when they see me out with mine, they're like, oh, but it's taken me years to love my hair, but I still don't really know how to manage it because I just ruined it for so long trying to look like everyone else. I got picked on for so much for my hair, and the fact that you have to pin it back. Honestly, my friend, she does castings, and she says the job sheets, they'll have hair examples of how you should have your hair. Not one of them has any picture with a hair like ours. It's literally just like straight hair, European kind of style hair, if you know what I mean, Caucasian hair, not Afro textured hair. The whole touching thing, I get the fascination if you're not used to seeing people with hair like mine, but don't touch it. And like, if I went around touching people's heads, I'm pretty sure they think I was weird. So like, I don't really think I am exempt from being not touched. I just think it's weird. And please, for the love of God, stop saying you have an afro if you don't, because I find that so offensive beyond belief. The amount of times I say, oh my God, my hair's an afro today. You're not saying your hair looks nice when you say you have an afro. You're literally saying my hair's a mess today. Think about how people who have natural afro hair feel when you compare your hair to looking a mess as an afro. You know, people are excluded from schools. They can't get jobs. They're literally told that their dreadlocks need to come off because it doesn't fit the uniform policy. Tell me about a uniform policy. Listen, I'm not having it. When it comes to hair, just stop. I don't think you need to. What was it? It's a book called Don't Touch My Hair, is it?
Yeah. Don't touch my hair.
All need to read it. All need to read it. Every single one of us. But yeah. Fuming.
I do find it very strange. I personally hate being touched in general. I don't like human contact apart from my son. So if someone started coming if someone came up to me and started playing with my hair, I think I'd genuinely wallop them. But then maybe again, white privilege, they wouldn't think that I was being horrendously aggressive or that it was
you wouldn't be the one to be arrested when somebody calls the police.
No.
I would. I have actually.
What?
I have been arrested when somebody has touched or insulted or literally assaulted. Do you remember that? Literally touching somebody without their permission is assault. Oh. And I have been the one in the back of a police car or a police van because I've whacked their hand away from me and it's hurt them.
Telling you. What did I say? The person who is on the end of racism, the reaction to racism is usually punished more than the act of racism itself.
Yeah.
It's just a fact.
Oh.
I can't believe the story. What?
No,
it happens. It happens.
Wow.
Especially when you've got a thickness and my hair is so unmissable. People love to.
I hate it. Have you ever been what's a majiggy? Have you ever been called Sideshow Bob? I get that all the time. I call myself it, but I don't want you to call me it. It's rude.
Yeah. Literally every time I put my hair in like twists, if I have like big chunky twists, that's what I get. I was like, shut up, it's healthy and protective for my hair, which needs it because it's delicate as hell. So none of that.
Hey, do you know the history behind Afro hair though? I don't know whether I should say this because I haven't fact this, but my dad was reading up. He loves to read up, and he was telling me about how, do you even know why you have Afro hair? He was like, it's evolution. That it stands up and it's more up to protect your head from the sun. So like in hot countries. So he was like, that's the history of Afro hair, and I was like,
it's literally just genetics. It's genetics. Same with dark skin though. It's just literally who lived closer to the equator. That's it.
I wish the racists knew that though, that we're all.
They all like to go on sunbeds and lie in the sun for hours and go to a different colour, but yeah, we'll not talk about that.
Let's move on.
We'll move on from
Yeah,
that.
not all of them, because
Not everyone. What about the question of where are you really from? So if someone says to you, where are you from? And you say Birmingham, Liverpool, blah, 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 but then they go, no, where are you really from?
I'm not offended by that question, to be honest. I know a lot of people are. Are you offended, Raisha?
I get what people are asking. I understand that they're asking what my heritage is. But on the one hand, I have lived and I was raised and pretty much my entire life, except for the past year, in West Yorkshire. So if I'm asked where I'm from, I say Yorkshire. I'm a Yorkshire bird through and through. But I get what people are asking when they ask that. They sort of asking, where's your heritage, where's your ancestry? And I'm more than happy to answer that.
Maybe the wording.
Yeah. What I'm not okay with is people phrasing it in a way that they think I don't belong here. Like I said, I'm a Yorkshire girl through and through. I have no other home. Yorkshire
and even my mum, born and raised Liverpool. So yeah, I mean, how far back? Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Where you're from makes it sound like you're not from here.
Yeah.
But I don't get. I'm not offended by the question because I like people asking me my heritage. But maybe it is the wording. If you just say what's your heritage, it's not.
It depends on the context and who it's coming from. You know when it's coming from somebody that's genuinely just curious, and you know when it's coming from somebody that's trying to get at something.
Yeah.
If you've got a good heart, then you're all good with me.
Oh.
It's a nice question. You should be. It's good to be proud of your heritage, isn't it? So I mean, I like to know where people's what people's heritages are. So maybe it's just the tone and, like you say, how you word a question.
It's also quite sensitive for some people because some people don't actually know what their heritage is.
Yeah.
I didn't growing up. I didn't actually even know if I was Caribbean or African as a kid because I didn't know my dad.
So I think people need to kind of be aware that it can be a sensitive issue as well, and maybe how they approach the question. Because although I know where I'm from, doesn't mean other people do. You know, when slaves came to this, were brought to the UK, a lot of them the names were changed to match the name of the slave owner, so that they can't, you know, it was their property. So some people can't even trace back where they're from. You've got the people who are mixed, for example, who have different nationalities and different backgrounds, and they don't know where they're from. And so I think, as nice as the question is, that it's if it's coming from a nice place with a heritage because it's coming from it's a point of interest. I'm not offended, but I think we have to kind of maybe look at how we word it, and then also think that it might be a sensitive topic for some people because they might not necessarily actually know where they're from, if that makes sense.
No, that's good. It's good for everybody to know and be aware of that as well. I think that's why it's good to have these conversations. I have one final question, which is quite a funny one. It's a strange one, really, but do black people burn is the question I have been asked to ask. They never see a black person burn, so here it is.
Ask away. Yeah, that's funny. I actually don't. I do, but I don't. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't. My eyes do, but nowhere else does. I tan really quickly, but someone else me actually. Do you tan? Yes, I do. I tan. I go really dark, but I don't burn, apart from my face.
Yeah.
I have burn. It takes some special temps. It takes like 30 plus degrees for me to burn. I have to be in it all day. But I am a proper stereotypical sun worshipper. I love being in the sun. I can't get enough of it. I love that heat feeling. That being said, I know people that are not mixed race, people that are black and have had sunburn. It happens. At the end of the day, as much as black skin looks magical, it is not magical. It is skin. And if it's exposed to enough heat, it will burn. There is the sort of scientific factors of melanin being quite a protector, which is exactly why black people are black, because they're closer to the equator, like I mentioned before. Anybody's skin can burn. It's just skin. At the end of the day, it is skin. It burns.
So yeah, sun cream.
Sun cream, everybody.
I wear sun cream here. I put sun cream on out in the UK. You know, catch me with that factor 50.
I have, not often, but I have used sun cream.
Wow. I really need to get on that hype because I am rubbish at wearing sun cream.
Oh, I love the smell. Currently, I feel like I'm on holiday because I've got it on. I'm like, oh, love it.
Love it. Well,
Also,
guys,
I want to say I fake tan as well. People think black people don't fake tan. I do. I use the Bondi Sands Extra Dark.
Right.
When I'm looking a bit ashy, Bondi Sands is my best friend. I'm just putting that out there.
Well, where'd you put it? Everywhere or?
Legs mainly. If I'm wearing like a skirt or a dress, you know, like Christmas when you're wearing skirts and dresses for nights out and stuff like that around Christmas time. Christmas and New Year's are a nightmare for me because you've got to put it on, scrub it off, and put it back on for New Year's.
To be fair, I used to do that when I was younger, just to give my legs that airbrush look, just to smooth out the skin.
Yeah, exactly
I
that.
used to do
Exactly that.
That's Sally Hansen stuff, whatever that is.
Oh.
Skinny tan as well. My best friend. Love it.
Amazing.
Sorry, that was a tangent. Moving on.
Oh, I liked it though. That was all of the questions that I had, but I mean, I think it's been very insightful for me, so hopefully it has for other people as well.
Great.
And hopefully we can do more of this type of thing. So
Yeah,
if
I'd love
you
to.
have questions, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I literally love listening to you two as well. I just have to control the tangents, but I love it.
I know. I'm sorry.
We're so bad for it.
Well, we could genuinely just stick you two on camera. I'll ask one thing and then it would be amazing. We could just go on, and I love it.
Yeah,
I think
good.
we need it. Yeah.
We're really good.
Did you have anything else that you?
I don't, Alicia.
Nope.
Lovely. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks for everybody watching as well.
Thanks for asking the questions.
Yes, thanks to all my friends
Definitely.
who sent them over. That was amazing.
Great stuff.
Lovely. All right then, we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.